also the biological father of a few children, being a sperm donor. So I did a deep dive during my PhD research in courage development to make them work in space, because if we want to create human settlements beyond Earth, which I support, we also need to figure out how to safely reproduce there. So that's where it started.
How was Spaceborne born? So basically you are trying to revolutionize the existing technology and make it adaptable for space.
More and more women want to focus on a career first and then start looking if they can start a family. All these fertility rates are dropping worldwide. So
for human reproduction beyond Earth, how do you see that?
20 to 30 years, we should have the first human birth in space.
Hello and welcome to Rocket Biologist, the show where we meet experts in medicine and biology. I'm your host, Dr. Adil Nasir. My cosmic comrades, we will continue our conversation with Dr. Egbert Edelbrock. To follow the discussion, please listen to episode 3 of season 1. The link is in the description. Okay, that's quite some time. So I will tell everyone to stay tuned. Looking forward to that moment. So you already mentioned or you touched upon this subject that, the harsh environment of space. I think the harsh environment, as a biologist, I think that it's a relative terminology. Wherever life evolved, this environment is relative to its evolution. So we, as human, we evolved on Earth. We are very well adapted to this environment. Maybe it's harsh for some other species if they're coming from another planet. I'm also counting on that. So do you really think that, this harsh environment, especially the microgravity and radiations, these two major elements, will we be able to produce, sperm and eggs properly for even starting to reproduce, even if we have the technology? Will we have this normal physiology to produce those germ cells to produce at all?
As far as I am aware of relevant literature, it is compromised to some extent, but still there's a lot of astronauts, when they came back to Earth, they became dads and mothers, etc. So other indicators show that it's still possible to create gametes in space, viable gametes. But again, my assumption, my expectation is that the longer we want to stay in space, the more people we're going to send to space, the more space stations we will create that mitigate the microgravity, because microgravity, we already know, that's not healthy in many ways. Mm-hmm. So we just don't know yet if it would be enough to increase microgravity to, for example, Martian gravity, like 39% of Earth gravity. Maybe that is enough to mitigate most of those negative effects. Maybe we need 60%. We don't know. We will have to learn about this. So I think humanity is focusing on creating more healthy gravity environments, more healthy radiation interventions.
So for instance, that, if what you are saying, that human physiology in microgravity environment or the data come from International Space Station. We don't know much about what will happen once we will cross the magnetic field and we will go to Mars. There is a very scarcity of data, how human physiology would actually, react to that. In that data, which clearly shows that, astronauts are very healthy people, very fit people. They go up there, they come back, and there is also some studies that shows that, they expose rodents and they were able to reproduce after coming back on Earth. They were able to produce sperms. But in the end of the day, if you are going in an environment which is relatively harsh, it gets harsher when you go beyond International Space Station or below magnetic field of Earth. Why don't you produce a sperm bank or egg bank, save them, and use it there? Because a lot of physiological changes can reduce the production of germ cells in human. Why to risk it? Do you think that this could be an option?
Absolutely. It's actually those kind of strategies are already part of initial explorations of strategies to mitigate the challenge you described. It's also part of the whole assisted reproductive technology approach. Natural reproduction in space is quite far ahead, and we hope we can enable that someday, especially through studying by the use of assisted reproductive technologies, including strategies that you just mentioned. Freeze sperm and bring them to Mars instead of. It's so much easier to protect a small volume like a frozen sperm bank for radiation, and then metabolic activity is much lower, of course, etc. So before we can do natural reproduction, including natural gamete production after space travel or during space travel, I think we will be relying on artificial approaches like you mentioned.
All right. So that brings me to the next question that is connected. So once the human physiology is very much compromised, especially if women up in space cannot really, give birth to a baby, the pregnancy cannot be sustained. And there's an issue with hormones and all sorts of issues you can think of. And it's simply not going to, women will not be able to sustain 9 months pregnancy. If this is not possible, this is not an option, even if we try, we mitigate all those problems. What are the strategies out there that you can do an alternative approach to have babies in space?
That's not so much our key focus or our key activity. So it's speculating. We assume that if you mitigate the gravity challenge and the radiation challenge, you've covered maybe already 90%. But if what you say is true, that still that's not going to be enough. There's technologies being developed on Earth, like the artificial womb. It's now being applied, I believe, or almost being applied to human babies, especially premature babies, because the lungs they can develop better in a fluid environment the last weeks of pregnancy. And if a baby is premature and it gets air in the lungs, that's causing a lot of big problems. So these artificial wombs might also be an approach for reproduction in space if the technology or the biology is not ready for natural pregnancy in space yet.
Yeah, that's an interesting approach, and let's hope that this can work, and it can also we can also get benefit from these kind of technologies on Earth, because I think this is an issue even on Earth sometimes.
I can imagine. I've had discussions with many women who would prefer to, you could say, outsource the pregnancy to a device, to an artificial womb. But of course, that's ethically super sensitive and delicate, etc. But I can imagine that for some people, they can see a lot of benefits. They don't have to pause their careers. I don't know, even superficial things like, I don't want to stop smoking or drinking. Not very good motives, but there are these all different types of motives.
Yeah, I think this is as you said, that it's ethically very delicate issue, because the surrogate mothers are there. It happens sometimes. It's one of the options, but yeah, artificial wombs can be a way to overcome that issue. But again, it's subjective to a lot of debate, and yeah. Okay, so you did mention that that you have had your space mission. This is your first space mission.
Absolutely.
Would you like to tell us about the thrill and the fun? How was the experience, and what you were doing? What was the purpose of this whole space mission?
Yes, so let's start with that. The purpose was to validate, to confirm that the systems in the mini lab were operating as expected in real flight conditions. So the life support system, the micro cameras, the microfluidic device, there were some cells inside to also confirm that the life support system was working. Not mammalian cells yet, yeast cells, but they were kept alive. So it was a success in many ways. It was with a SpaceX rocket launched from Cape Canaveral in Florida. I had the honor to be there, thanks to the producer of this documentary, because she paid for the trip and she filmed everything. And yeah, we couldn't get very close to the launch. We were hoping we could get much closer than we did. We knew we couldn't get closer than about 3 miles, 4 miles. But there was a difficult to reach location at that time. So we had a spot a little farther away. So when the light reaches you, the sound still needs about a minute to reach you. So that's a crazy experience. Of course, it's super exciting to know, hey, our mini lab is on board this rocket and it's actually going to space. We've been working towards that for a few years, and that's a huge milestone. And you feel the excitement and you're proud. Meanwhile, you're multitasking because the producer says, "Yes, look in the camera now." And what are you feeling? And I'm trying to make up some tagline or some.
I can relate to the feeling after starting this podcast. The time I hit the recording button, things change.
Exactly. So it's really great to be there, and it's also you're not sure if the timing will be as planned. They might delay it, but fortunately that went well.
Okay, so would you like to tell us about that? What you got out of this experiment? Anything that you can share?
Yeah, well, basically that the systems work as intended. The Minilab prototype, this version is successful. It works in space. It survives the launch. And we also tested the data downlink. That worked quite well, not perfect, but that was not our achievement. That was our launch partner's responsibility. But we did. So we did get imagery from our experiment in space, and yeah, I think in a nutshell, that's what we got out of this: the green light to go to the next step and launch mammalian embryos inside the further matured mini lab.
Well, that's great news. Congratulations for that.
Thank you.
So, what is the future space mission? Do you have any future space mission planned, or?
Yes, we intend to. We're working on a more matured mini lab prototype, where the microfluidic device is also enabling actually the life support of mouse embryos. So that's our next space mission. We will be launching with Skyroot, the Indian launch company. Hopefully early next year. That's what they planned, but we're depending on their progress. In September, they will do their first orbital launch. If that's rather successful, then probably early next year is still feasible. It's not a big problem if it's going to be a few months later. They're going to launch like 4 times a year. We already have a good collaboration with an IVF lab in India, close to the launch location, university lab, and a very experienced embryologist who's going to actually insert the embryos in the mini lab. So we're now finalizing the ethical approval for this mission and the use of the mouse embryos. So that's our next mission. And the subsequent mission, we plan to do actual conception, mammalian conception in space with an Italian launch partner, because that will require very late access to the payload. So we need to be the primary payload. So it's a small rocket. We are a small payload. Our next mission with the Skyroot launcher is a much, much bigger rocket, and we're absolutely not the primary payload. We're just one of many.
Okay, so you did mention that you need to be at the 11th hour there for the launch, your experiment, something like that. If I misunderstood something for the Italian launch, why is that?
Yeah, so we want to work with freshly collected, freshly harvested female cells, female mouse oocytes, and they remain fertile for a limited amount of hours.
All right.
And that creates a challenge. The pre-launch logistics are quite challenging because we're talking about 6 to 8 hours. That's not much, and within that time frame, the launch partner needs to finalize the launch preparations. It needs to be launched. The mini lab needs to be closed and secured under biolab conditions. The rocket needs to be closed and prepared for launch. It needs to launch, and then when it's in orbit, and then the initial telemetry checks are done, all that needs to happen in that 6 to 8 hours. And we're currently working on strategies to extend this time frame and to delay the oocyte aging process that is causing this problem, because the zona, the outer layer of the oocyte, hardens because of this process, and then the sperm cells don't have enough power to penetrate it after 6 to 8 hours. So we're exploring different strategies to extend that period, because that will reduce all those pre-launch logistics.
Well, you are up against the force of evolution, so good luck with that.
Thanks.
Now there are some, I think you did mention. So if you have to give a number, that in how many years we will be able to see a space-born baby?
An actual human baby that was conceived in space, you mean, I guess.
Yep.
Again, this is depending on a few things that are partially out of our control, but on average, we are aiming to achieve this by the end of this decade. Might be 1 or 2 years later, but we aim to achieve it around 2030.
Okay, I will lock that date. Okay, so with your project, as you already mentioned, and you talked about it's a very delicate subject to begin with. So there are a lot of ethical issues associated with that ambitious project of yours, and I'm sure that you are asked all these questions. So how do you address these questions which are asked in terms of ethics of your project that you're undertaking?
Yeah, so we're very happy that there are all these different experts. Some experts that have joined our team. They're bioethics experts and space bioethic experts, and we are on top of that, we are supported by a team that is called Meteors. That's a NASA-funded collaboration with the Baylor College of Medicine and another related institution, and TRISH, the Transnational Institution for Space Research. So they're helping us to both identify and navigate any ethical issues with our missions. And of course, you cannot just do anything in space there are these ethical committees that need to approve the use of animal gametes. And of course, when we transition to work with human gametes, there will be, 10 times as complicated. So we have a lot of expert support on navigating this. And it all comes down to preventing unnecessary suffering from living tissues, living cells. And there needs to be a legitimate goal to allow for some level of suffering, and of course that's focusing on the expectation that we can reduce the suffering of many couples in the world that need IVF to get pregnant, and on top of that, of course, the goal of enabling human settlements beyond Earth in the future.
So this is I'm changing the order of question, if you don't mind. So do you receive criticism for your project? And if you do, how do you handle that?
Sometimes it's criticism that is ungrounded, that is not rational, that is based on crazy assumptions, that goes as exotic as, they are cloning animals and cells and humans. Completely ridiculous claims. Those kind of things we simply ignore. But other criticism that seems more legitimate, we actually try to encourage it and have discussions, because we want to make sure we are not overlooking any kind of ethical considerations. There's also religious groups that are not a great fan of IVF in general. Some people might know that when IVF was invented some 46, 47 years ago, it was met with a lot of resistance worldwide. It took 10 years for most countries before they embraced it and especially saw it as an opportunity. And now we are extending IVF into space and adding new complexities and potential risks. So we understand the concerns, and that's why it's so good that there's all these ethical committees helping us with these considerations. Religious concerns are also still based on that basic IVF element, that this is a divine process in their view, at least, and you shouldn't interfere with that. And that's like playing God or something. That's a view on the world. We have different people in the team with different views on the world, or religious views. So we also accept. We don't. We're not saying that what we do is the only way of working. That we have the pure wisdom. No, we know that we need the experts, the ethical experts, to help us navigate these concerns. So in a nutshell, we encourage criticism, especially rational criticism, which can also be religious perspectives, and have dialogues and yeah.
I think technology has its own, importance, and the reason that human race could survive that far and we can live longer, it's all because of those innovations that people did all over these so many years. And I think this should go on. And certainly, we are a society which has difference of opinion, and I think that's the show must go on. And I really, congratulate you for keep on going with all that criticism. So that needs a lot of courage. So congratulations on this.
Thank you.
Okay. Now the idea is that what do you think that, how your technology is going to help people on Earth?
So what I mentioned, we certainly expect it to improve IVF success rates. So it takes less attempts for a couple before they get pregnant on average. It reduces the patient burden. in that way as well. It also reduces costs, medication costs. Those are some key benefits for life on Earth. There are some expectations, but they are slightly more speculative, that it could revolutionize to some extent reproductive biology in general as well. We might learn even more. There's all these experiments being done in space providing unexpected benefits. So it wouldn't be completely surprising if we also unlock new insights. Some people even expect that we might unlock epigenetic benefits, that we might unlock hidden human potential in that way. We haven't dived very deep in that, but we're happy that there could be even more benefits than just increasing the IVF success rate. So, yes.
So my question was basically that, the technology you developed that you are referring as mini lab or artist, if the same mini lab is can be used in IVF clinics, because generally that IVF clinics are following their traditional ways of performing this procedure. The adaptation of new technology or this microfluidic chips are being used for mostly the selection of sperms, but the embryo development is still being taken as how you call it, drop culture in a petri dish. It's still, this is the regulatory situation there, and this is how it's being done. Do you think that the medical personnel are open for adapting these technology, and they will take what you develop in the end of the day?
I know there's a lot of innovation going on, especially around artificial intelligence, in embryo selection and many other processes, a lot of automation. Personally, I don't think it's likely that what we're making is going to provide that many hardware solutions, because our unique added value is that we understand the space infrastructure, and we can design a mission, create the mission architecture needed to facilitate this process, and develop the technology that works in this space infrastructure. But I don't think we can compete with the innovators that already have multi-hundred million backed innovation processes based on the hardware improvements and the automation improvements. We do have a unique environment that we need to adapt to, which might create unique benefits even from a hardware perspective. But I'm not counting on this. Absolutely not.
Okay, well, let's hope that someone is listening to you and they're counting on you in that regard. So now the question is that, for example, that when the revolution of genetic engineering happened, that everyone was talking about that, genetic engineering will be used to produce like babies, tailor-made babies, that you need this kind of eyes, this kind of hair, this height, and blah, blah, blah. This was the idea. But actually, it didn't happen. And I don't think this is going to happen unless and until we are really going crazy. So your space reproductive facilities, do you see that at one point a billionaire wants to have a space-born baby and, bring a lot of money and offer that, and that becomes a luxury rather than a, very important contribution for the human exploration in space? Do you think that can happen?
Well, it's actually likely that it will be tried. If it will happen is maybe also up to us. But we've been warned in an early stage that this might happen, that this might be requested, not alone by individuals or wealthy families, but also by nations, upcoming space nations that want to put themselves on the map in a new space race and claim a unique achievement in space. And it seems attractive for these nations or wealthy families to be able to say, well, the very first human baby not conceived on Earth we enabled this, or it was my grandchild, or whatever. So we've actually already been approached by these upcoming space nations because of this, and we are not going to be surprised if it's also going to be wealthy families. We don't feel like that's a good idea. In general, you could say, okay, there's other industries, space tourism. It starts for the very wealthy people, and with those revenues, it accelerates the development. So ethically, it could even be acceptable, perhaps. But when we are talking about babies that grow into humans, and all the implications, that's I think much more complicated, and we very strongly prefer to stay ethically and medically very clean, and we don't want to be associated with selling space babies or anything. So if all other options we're running out of all the other options, we might have new discussions, but we expect we don't need things like this. But on the other hand, yes, one person will be that very first human that was not conceived on Earth. But we do feel the responsibility to whoever that person will be, to protect her or him for the craziness in the media that might occur. But that's a few years ahead. For now, we want to keep clean and just be supported by the fertility sector, especially, and the space exploration sector.
Okay, so no space-born baby by billionaire for now, at least.
No.
Okay, well, good to know. Thanks for clarifying that. So now you are someone who's putting all his effort in that. It's an enterprise. Of course, you are going to get benefit in terms of money and everything. But in the broader sense, you're trying to facilitate that how life will be going to survive into space and long-term space missions. You want to make our species an intergalactic species. Although I'm still debating that are we, intercontinental species already or not. Having said that, what's your message to leaders of the world that who are like going on wars and all this kind of thing where life is just being shattered? So, any message for those people?
I wish I had a vision on all the challenges in the world. I cannot understand why there is so much war. It's such a waste of talent, of resources, of money, etc. But I don't have the idea that I have the solution for these leaders. So at the moment, nothing specific comes up.
Okay, well, let's hope that sanity prevails and life as we know of survive first of all on Earth, and then I am sure that you are bringing us somewhere in another galaxy. Okay, so the point is, Egbert, that if a baby is conceived on the International Space Station, which I mean that in the low Earth orbit, if a baby is conceived on Moon, and if a baby is conceived on Mars, there are three different sorts of, gravity magnitude and different sorts of environment. So these babies will not be able to live everywhere. So something, born and evolve on different conditions. But in the end of the day, the question is, are they really going to adapt to those harsh conditions if we follow the natural way of conception and giving birth? Do you think that maybe to survive long term and to adapt faster than the evolution take its course, which may not never happen, we need to do the engineering of embryo, to make them more suitable for the survival in different harsh conditions?
So I don't think there will be babies born that will be conceived in the microgravity environments like the International Space Stations. It's being prevented by space agencies that this happens. Similarly, with the upcoming space tourism sector. But babies conceived on Mars and born on Mars and raised on Mars, they might have a lot of challenges if they would go to Earth because of the gravity difference, unless what you suggest that potentially gene editing, like CRISPR technologies, would be applied. I know that there's these top experts in genetics. Christopher Mason, he did a lot of work on his book, The Next 500 Years, Gene Editing to Reach Other Stars. And he explains quite a strong solid scientific backed approach that would include gene editing that would mitigate that problem. I absolutely don't know the details, but I do know that he has a scientifically backed approach, gene editing approach, that enables children that are born either on Mars or Earth, they can go to Mars and Earth back and forth without huge problems. So that if gene editing will progress, that might be applied someday, and there are options to mitigate it, apparently, but I fully appreciate all the ethical delicacy and challenges around it, and we need to be very, very careful with things like this. But I'm not going to be surprised if countries or other groups see more benefits than negatives, and they will continue to explore this.
Well, thanks. That's certainly a very delicate subject to deal with. So now that boils on to my last question, and that is, would you like to donate your sperm for space experiment, and would you like to have a space-born baby?
I don't think it would be wise if I don't want to. So the answer is no on both. Especially because it would compromise the whole project. It could be seen as abusing my position, which I don't want to do. I have a number of biological children that I'm extremely happy with. I think that's more than enough. That's a personal other element. I'm not 20 anymore, not 30 anymore. The quality of my sperm might be not optimal anymore. Yet another reason, but the key reason is this bigger project is bigger than myself by a multitude of times. So I should never ever abuse my position to do something for my ego that, hey, that's my space baby or anything. No, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Egbert, for this lovely interview, and I hope
pleasure.
We can talk to you afterwards when you have your second successful mission in space, and I will keep a track of your progress, and let's stay tuned. Let's see what you are bringing us in the future.
Thank you so much for having me and for allowing me to share our work.
Thank you very much. So on that note, everyone, goodbye and see you in the next episode. My cosmic comrades, we will continue our intergalactic conversation in the next episode. Until then, stay curious and stay connected as we are just beginning our odyssey into the heart of the universe.